Hi, my name is Jonathan Boyd, and this is a Level 1 bowspring practice. Please begin sitting on your heels with your knees pointing forward. If that's challenging on your knees, it's nice to have a block to sit on, and you can just place it between your heels and your sit bones. Then position your fingertips on your thighs in dome hands. Close your eyes. Let this practice be a practice of fullness. A practice that is mindful, powerful, and also playful. On your next inhale, float your hands forward in front of you, bend your elbows and touch your fingertips together in globe hands. Curl every finger and intertwine your fingernails, one of the most sensitive areas of your body, your fingertips. Feeling the sensitivity, bend your elbows out to the sides and lift your outer elbows higher. As you push your fingertips into each other, let the sensitivity yield strength. Create tone evenly in your forearms, your upper arms, the biceps and the triceps. And with that tone in your arms, expand and broaden your rib cage in all directions, left to right, back to front. Lift your chin. Open your mouth and breathe one full cycle of breath in and out. Then on your next inhale, open your eyes, reach your arms forward, lift your hips. If you use that prop, just place it off to the side of your mat, and then touch your fingertips down in dome hands position. Dome hands is where the fingers are all curled and the fingernails are touching the floor, but you're not weight bearing. From dome, place your hands into bright hands, where the palms come down. Open your knees as wide as your hips. With your hands as wide as your mat, allow your fingers to just be a natural extension of the bones within your hands. So there's no need to spread your fingers as wide as possible. Then push your arms straight until you can lift your rib cage away from the resistance of gravity. Press your knees forward to move the hips slightly back. Then push your knees out to the side to lift your glutes up. Tilt your right ear towards your right shoulder, then dome your left hand. Let the dome hand be a hand of sensitivity and your right hand to be of strength. Push both arms straight, fill into your back body, and then move your hips back. Keep pushing your knees out to the side to keep a lift through your glutes. Dome hand isn't meant to weight bear. From dome hand, place your palm down into bright hand and switch sides. Tilt your left ear towards your left shoulder, dome your right hand. Pull your hands towards your knees to move your rib cage more forward, while simultaneously sending your hips further back. Seeking to move the rib cage and hips in direct opposition. Then lower your right hand down. Move both hips back until you can get to a place where you dome both hands. As you dome both hands with your toes pointed, push your toenails down, engage your legs, and see if you could lift one hand and then the other hand. So getting the weight back into the legs, letting the legs, your glutes, be the powerhouse for the practice. From that place of lightness in the rib cage, place both hands bright, tuck your toes, and lift up into crouching cat position. Separate your feet as wide as your mat. Push your arms straight, keep the rib cage lifted. With the knees softly bent, tilt your sit bones up into the air. And then test the lightness. Can you lift one hand, then the other hand? So it's a practice that's a little more dynamic, less static than traditional downward facing dog. Maintain the lift of your rib cage as you exhale and lower your knees down to the floor. Bring the knees hip width, move your hips back. Then lean to your right and lift your left leg out to the side, open leg position, and dome your left hand. Lift your chin, gaze forward. Pull your left knee and left foot forward to sit your hips back towards your right heel. And as you push your knee forward and sit back, pull your left hand towards your right knee and move your rib cage more forward. You can add any associated sound effects like psst. Lower your knee, lower your hand, and switch sides. Lift your right leg out to the side, dome your right hand. That awkward was pretending to be a dog at a fire hydrant. Push your knee forward, sit your hips back, and then pull your rib cage forward. With the knee moving forward of the right leg, just allows you to spring load your hips back so they're in a place of power. And more weight is in the left leg than in either hand. Lower the right hand, lower the right knee, then tuck your toes under, lift back up, crouching cat position. From here, slowly walk your hands back towards your feet, but keep reaching forward with the rib cage and the top of the head. Come to more of a forward fold position and place your left hand to your left knee, then right hand to right knee. Recovery position, rise up. First with your palms on your knees, tilting forward, and then a little more upright, fingertips to the center of your thighs. On your next inhale, float your arms forward in front of you, horizon arms. Then bend your elbows and cup the back of your head, ecstasy arms position. One aspect of bowspring is learning all the different arm positions, leg positions, hands and feet. Point your elbows straight forward and pull your hand in towards your head. As you do that, broaden through your upper back and push your head back into your hands. With your elbows pointing forward, it gives you the advantage of broadening through your upper back, then tilt over to the right. As you tilt to the right, turn your knees in and move your hips back. Find an arch in your low back to match the roundedness in your upper back. Then push your knees out to the side, tilt your ear even further, lift the left side rib cage high, and send the hips further back. Inhale, rise back up, and go over to the other side. Lean over to the left. Turn your knees in, send your hips back, tilt ear to shoulder, even pulse, move with your breath. Inhale, ribs up, exhale, hips down and back. Inhale, ribs up, exhale, hips down and back. Come all the way back up, reach the arms forward in front of you, then hold opposite elbows, genie arms position. In genie arms position, hooking the elbows, push your elbows out to the sides, and as the periphery gets more stabilized, try to move the core, expand your rib cage laterally. Weight your right foot, lift your left heel, dig your foot forward to move your hips back, and then drag your foot back to engage the back of your leg as you step the foot forward into a high lunge. High lunge in bowspring is a much shorter stance than classical yoga. Lift your back heel, but move it close towards the floor. Sit your hips back, push your elbows out to the sides, and broaden and widen. Imagine your elbows were on a ledge. You could pull down to lift the rib cage up as you sit the hips down and back. Then, from lunge position, bring your back heel down and slide your left foot back and around your right foot into zigzag leg. Place both hands to your knees. In zigzag, the left foot is not just behind the right foot, but also to the right of the right foot. Turn the knees in, move your hips back, then push your knees out. Broaden your sit bones. Then reach your arms forward in front of you. From zigzag position, pulse the legs, and then lift your back foot and step it out wide to the left. Bend both elbows and bring your seed hands together. Seed hands is when you curl the fingers into a fist softly, joining the two hands together. Turn your knees in, move your hips back, and start to hinge forward. Reach your arms forward. Exhale and come back up. Do two more like that. Inhale and reach, push forward. Exhale, back up. And again. Then push off your left foot, lift it back to center, but step it back into a high lunge position. Sit your hips back, lower your back heel close towards the floor, tilt your left ear towards your left shoulder, and twist over towards the right. Keep the hips moving back, push your knees out, broaden and expand through your rib cage. Turn the knees in. Expand and widen the side you're twisting to by tilting your left ear to your left shoulder even more. Then turn back to center. Push off the back foot and lift your left foot forward to place it on top of your right knee for infinity leg. Then join your hands together and place your thumbs to the top of your head, crown hands. Point your elbows forward and even reach them forward so you maintain the broadening through your upper back. Bend your knee into your left foot and move your groins down and back. And then from there, take your left leg back behind you in the air, reach your arms forward, bend your elbows, and come into propeller position. From propeller position, push your left knee forward, sit your hips back, then step the foot forward, lift your right foot, point your toes, and come down into a low lunge position. Reach your arms forward, then lean over towards the right, place your right hand to the floor, and cup the back of your head left hand. Mantis position, sit your hips back towards your right heel, then twist over towards the left. Drop your right ear towards your right shoulder, move the top of your head down. Then on your next inhale, come back up, place both hands to the front of your mat, and move back, crouching cat position. In crouching cat position, push your arms straight, push your knees forward, broaden your sit bones up. Then turn your feet to the left and dome your left hand. Tilt your right ear towards your right shoulder, sit your hips back, and push the left fingertips forward. Stay here or lift your hand, position it in seed hand, and push your arms straight as you sit your hips back. Inhale, ribcage forward. Exhale, hips go back. Inhale, ribs forward. Exhale, hips back. Turn to the floor and switch. Pivot on your feet. Turn your feet to the right. Move your knees in, sit your hips back. Dome your right hand and drop your left ear towards your left shoulder. Reach your arm long. Stretch and expand the right side ribs. And pulse up and down. Lift your right hand. Reach it long. And then turn to the floor, hand down, lift your heels. Turn your feet out, then walk the hands back towards the feet, but this time stay low, sink your hips down, keep your heels lifted, knees out, and come to a deep squat position. In deep squat, embrace the heels lifted to allow the low back to move in, and even hold your knees with both hands. Pull your knees up, broaden your chest, broaden your back ribs, look forward. Then place the hands in crown hands, Rocket boost your glutes. And lift all the way back up. Turn your heels out. Bend your knees and reach your arms to the horizon. Curl your fingers in seed hands and sit down low, chair position. From chair position, lift your right heel, push your foot forward, pull your foot back, and slowly step your foot forward into lunge position. Hold opposite elbows, genie arms. Do you remember which way you did it the first time? Wheels on the bus transition to the other side. Sit your hips down and back. Push your elbows up. Lift up. Lift your ribs. Lift your chin. Find a lightness, a buoyancy, even a pulse. Then from here, slide your front right foot back, around, behind, and even to the outside of the left foot for zigzag legs. Place both hands to your knees, and with your hands to your knees, turn your knees in to send your hips back, then push your knees out. Keep your rib cage more upright and vertical. Then push your arms straight forward, curl your fingers, push off the back foot, and step wide. Wide standing position, bend both elbows, seed hands position. With the two seeds together, send your hips back, hinge forward, and then reach forward. This time touch your fingers down, dome hands position, and pull your hands towards your feet as you move your ribs forward and the top of your head forward. Then cup the back of your head one, then the other. Push and slowly rise all the way back up. Return two seeds together. Weight your left foot, lift your right foot, and step it back into that lunge position. From the lunge position, move your hips back, stay upright, and twist over to the left. As you twist to the left, imagine your hands and elbows on a shelf or ledge, so you could pull down to lift up. At the same time as that lifts up, send your hips down and back, twist over to the left, drop your right ear to your right shoulder, keep a lift, keep a lightness, a buoyancy, then turn back to center, push off your back foot, and place your right foot heel to knee. Hands in crown hands position to remind you to keep lifting up through the top of your head, even as the left knee bends. Keep your hips moving back, embrace the balance. One-legged postures will create a one-pointedness, a central focus that if it's not there, if you're thinking about something else, you'll fall out of the pose. Then lift the leg back behind you, propeller, and then come into globe hands position. Pull the back knee forward, move your hips back, fill into your upper back so the rib cage is full and you're not just arching your low back through the low back muscles alone. Then step your right foot forward, lean into the right foot, lift your left foot, point your toes, reach the arms forward in front of you, and then arc over towards the left, left hand down, and cup the back of your head, right hand. Mantis position, and drop your left ear towards your left shoulder, lift the right side rib cage high up away from the floor. Sit your hips back so that you're lighter. And from that lightness, maybe even dome your left hand or lift the left hand completely. From there, rise back up, keep the arms forward, and step your right foot back in line with your left foot. Both hands in front of you, both legs in a kneeling position. Cup the back of your head, arc over towards the right, move your hips back, then come back up and arc over towards the left. And come back up. Reach the arms straight forward, touch dome hands down to bright, tuck your toes, lift your knees. Then cross your right ankle in front of your left knee. Come down into falcon position. Falcon is the new pigeon. So instead of dropping your hips down low, keep your hips in line with your front shin with the hips high. Then push both knees forward to move your hips further back, and push both knees out to the side to lift your glute muscles, your butt muscles up. At the same time, gaze between your forearms. Keep a lift of your rib cage by pushing your elbows down, and pull your elbows towards your hips so you move the top of your head forward. If you're tight in your hips, you'll get a hip opener on your right side without compromising or putting too much compression on your right knee. If you're open in your hips, you might just get stronger. Then go hand to hand, lift back up, push back crouching cat, and switch sides. Left ankle in front of right knee, shin down, back toes pointed, and onto the forearms. Repeat the exact same instructions, but on the second side. Teaching's so easy sometimes. With regard to flexibility, at what point is too much too much? And the stronger you get in certain areas, you may actually get less flexible. And that may be a good thing in terms of functionality in your range of motion. Rise back up onto your hands, tuck your toes, crouching cat, but turn your knees to the right and bring your left hip down. Then reach your left arm long, lie onto your side body, and keep your right leg hovering. Place your hand to your knee and push your knee forward into your hand to move your hips back, and hold more the outside of your right knee. Keep the knee low, but push it up into the resistance of your hand, and try to use that to widen and broaden your sit bones to actually lift your glutes up. And that's something you could do yourself, to grab your butt and lift it up. So make sure to grab the meaty flesh on the right side, not the inside. Not the inside. Then place your right hand down, push with your right hand, lift back up, and twist the other way. Knees to the left, lie on your right side. Lift your left leg, hand to your knee. Push your knee forward, move your hips back. For a little bit more activity, try to push your head and your arm down to lift the whole right side, waist and rib cage away from the floor so you're hovering. And then push your knee out, lift your glutes up. You can manually lift and make the glutes rise. I always think it's good to hire a personal assister when you take a yoga class or a Bowspring class, and they just shadow your mat and give you adjustments throughout class. It's the same as just having a massage therapist, but in a classroom setting. Then reach your arms in front of you, take your head back, and roll all the way onto your back, wiggling your way back to center. Then lift your feet to the height of your knees. Move your knees slightly further to the back of your mat. Open your hands wide to make more of a V shape. Make your upper back and upper chest broad. And on an exhale, lower your legs halfway to the left and arms halfway to the right. Imagine someone holding underneath the back of your heel so you could pull down and engage your legs as you push your arms straight. So it's a twist, but it's a twist where you're still fairly engaged. Come back up and go over to the other side. Legs to right, arms to left. Push your arms straight. And then back to center. Lower your feet down. Turn your palms to the front of the room. Bend your elbows and touch your fingers down. From there, lift your hips up, bridge position. And Bowspring bridge isn't necessarily thrust your hips as high as possible, like classical bridge. Instead, Drop your hips lower, and this is where a block could be useful, where you slide in under the very back of your pelvis. Keep your belly lifted and sink the hips down low. And when the hips drop lower, you can use your hands on that imaginary chin-up bar, more the Chuck Norris Total Gym kind of chin-up bar, and pull your rib cage towards the front of your mat as you drop the hips down. And the most advanced position would actually be putting the hips on the floor with the belly lifted, but not putting weight into the hips. So the legs are still doing all the work. If you use the block, just lift up, remove it, and when you lower your hips, keep your low back lifted away from the floor. However, make your shoulder blades broad, wide, and the back of your rib cage touching the floor, even the lower ribs. With your low back lifted, lift your right foot and then extend it up into the air. Hold the back of your thigh root position. Push your thigh into your hands and use your hands pulling down on your thigh to plug it in towards your hip socket as you work the legs straighter. Then switch legs. Lower your right foot. Keep your low back lifted. Lift your left foot. Hold the back of your thigh. Push your thigh into your hands. Pull your hands downwards towards your hip socket. Lift your chin. Breathe through your mouth, just so that it doesn't get so hard or rigid. And then lower your foot down. Lift both feet. Hold on to your knees. Freedom position. Holding your knees, allow your arms to straighten and let your thigh bones be heavy. So as your knees are over your hips, the low back will just naturally lift away from the floor. And then one by one, extend your legs long for the bowspring equivalent of corpse pose called assimilation. A posture to absorb the fullness of the practice. Even just a short exercise can yield dramatic results if one is mindful and playful and ultimately powerful.